Hello, and welcome to this, our 115th live stream. The magic of a good question. And that's what our live streams are all about, which is taking your questions on ancient Egypt and the Bible. Now, the title, of course, refers to our Monday video, which is on magic in the ancient Near East. And if you haven't seen it, please, after the live stream, do go and view it. Now, a little disclaimer. The technical crew tonight has been hit hard by the flu. Both myself and my producer are right now recovering from the flu. So we are we're a little out of sorts. We are both on how do I say this? Decongestants, whatever we need to get through this live stream. So you're gonna hear snuffles, you're gonna hear coughs, you're gonna hear all sorts of stuff that we wouldn't normally have on a live stream. So bear with us, okay? We're doing our best. We're doing our best to still be with you here tonight and not under a bunch of quilts just sort of shivering and Linguist Ammo says you got this. Well, we got the flu. That we got. We got that in spades. However, we still wouldn't miss this for the world. Oh, Jalen Post come Rafi. Is Mr. EC all right though? Oh yeah, he's always fine. Mr. EC never misses a beat, you know. Hey, look, I'm surprised Mr. EC didn't just check out and go on a world tour. Okay. But we're going to do our best to do the live stream, okay? Now, in my case, I am still suffering from some bronchitis. In the case of my producer, she's still in the full glory of the flu.
Him do the live stream. Thank you,
Addison Weir, you should have him. He's talking about Mr. EC. Do the live stream. Well, thank you, Addison, for that helpful suggestion. So, I've got my coffee. I'm doing my best here. Got a whole carafe of water here, and we're going to... Oh, we didn't let the bunny out. Okay, the bunny's protesting. Yeah. So, anyway... The rules are the same as always. Super chats have priorities. You all know that. At least you should if you've been on YouTube for any length of time. We do take some non-super chats, and for the non-super chats, we ask that you put a Q and a colon in front of the question so we know it's directed to me. All right. You also should know that we all ask that you only post the question once so that we don't get confused when I scan through it. And if it has to deal with a verse in the Bible or a word in a foreign language, that you give us some context. In the case of a Bible verse, give us the book, chapter, and verse. And in the case of a foreign language, we ask that you give us what language you think it's in and what you think the word means. Just to prevent me from scrambling around trying to figure out what you're talking about. Okay? Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm hacking up a lung. So don't worry about me. I'll only die off air. Not on air. Alright, so with that said, let's get into questions. We're going to start the night with 3 non-super chats. And the first non-super chat is from... I need to blow this up a bit because I can't see it. There we go, much better. All right, from Let Me Explain, Followers of the Shepherd. Why have many scholars started to translate Bereshit in Genesis 1:1 as when instead of in the prefix be means in? Okay. How do I say this? New theories of origins have put pressure to make Genesis 1:1 conform to a concordant meaning of the text. Okay? Now, what we mean by concordant meaning is that the meaning of Genesis 1:1 has to be one-to-one correspondent to what we know of science today. Okay? That's what's going on. And there's been a lot of pressure to read Genesis 1 in terms of concordant meanings. I, of course, reject that. I think the whole idea of trying to make Genesis 1 concordant with modern science is to miss the point of the literature in its entirety. Okay? So, I think this trend is deeply problematic. And I think also it's not really that well supported exegetically. Now, this is not to say that there aren't aspects of the Hebrew language that we're still discovering. But when you're replacing a prepositional phrase with a subordinate clause, you better have really good justification for the shift in grammar. And I haven't seen that yet. It might be there, but it has not been really, how do I say this? Proven. Okay? You are changing a reading that has been basically understood for 2,000 years. So if you're going to change a reading that's been understood for 2,000 years, and yeah, if you've got a good case for this, I'm all on board in this. This has not been demonstrated in the case of this change of a prepositional phrase to a subordinate clause to my satisfaction. So I've got really deep concerns about this trend. So, and frankly, still, I think these concordance guys can still get to where they want to go with the prepositional phrase. So I don't see a great need to change the underlying grammar, at least in this speculative way. And I know a lot of people are doing this right now, and I know a lot of scholars are moving to this direction. But I am not convinced on a grammatical basis that this is the correct way to go. All right? So anyway, that's sort of my thoughts on this. If I see more evidence that could support this, maybe I'll adopt it. But right now, I don't see the evidence. I've not been convinced of this through other, say, passages that have less exegetical pressure upon them. And what I mean by exegetical pressure is that there's more at stake. Generally, the way these things are proven is you take grammatical structures that are not, how do I say, hotly contested. If you have grammatical structures that are not hotly contested, and you can show the same structure in those less hotly contested passages, that makes the more hotly contested passages more likely. But that has not been shown here. So I've got deep misgivings about this. All right? So anyway, I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciate it. And it's a good question. And I think there's some issues here that really, really needs to go under the microscope here in ways that that I think concordant readings are being overly Pollyanna about. So anyway, thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciate it. Okay, our next non-super chat here is from 501 Mobius. Good to see you here. Did you study under Donald Redford at the University of Toronto? A question about my educational background. The answer is no, I didn't. When I studied at the University of Toronto, Donald Redford had already been officially retired. Now, the University of Toronto has a mandatory retirement system. And Redford had been forced to retire. But he couldn't stop teaching. And the reason why was he married his how do I say this? His grad student, his teaching assistant, and had 2 young children. So he had to actually go and take work at another institution. Now, I have met Redford once, and I did study under one of Redford's students, which was James Hoffmeyer. But I never studied under Redford directly. When I was at the University of Toronto, I studied more under Ron Leprechaun. And Leprechaun did give me some really, really interesting and foundational things, especially as far as how to research sources, how to look up things. And in some ways, I sort of got a better education out of Leprechaun. But at the same time, too, I got an equivalent of Redford through his own students. So, while I never had the opportunity to study under Redford at the University of Toronto, didn't miss much either. So, anyway, I thank you for the question. Interesting question. It's always interesting to sort of tease out my background here. So, anyway, thank you for the question and very much appreciated. The third non-super chat here is from Vicentius Pesci. Okay. And he asks, how accurate are Plutarch and Diodorus Seleucus in reporting Egyptian myth? Do they make any major mistake? Oh boy. All right. Let's be straight up about this. These... how do I say this? First century, second century historians are just not very good at history. Especially old history. Now, they're pretty good about contemporary history. But when you start getting into history that's really ancient, and Egyptian myth is, in some sense, a recording of religious history. Egyptian myths, you have to really be careful to chronicle the change of myth over time. These guys are not good at it. Okay, they're not good at it at all. Plutarch makes some really serious errors in the Osiris myth. Oh boy. Yeah, I do not trust first century historians for ancient history. Now, what I mean by ancient history here is history that, say, exceeds more than 300 years before their time. So, and I would include not just Plutarch here, I'd also include Josephus here as well. He's also in this category. So when they're trying to chronicle things that are 1,000 years before their time, really awful. Really awful. They're going to get things really wrong in really fabulous ways. So, I don't know how to phrase this any more than that. Just, I don't trust their history. If they're
just gifted memberships.
Wow. Jack Ray just gifted 20 ancient Egypt and the Bible memberships. Okay. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to explain this. He's just gifting all these people with memberships. Wonderful. Okay. All right. We're going to time out here for a moment. We've answered the question anyway. So anyway, thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciated. Just don't trust these people for ancient history. They're not good. All right. Okay, we have to explain this now. Since Jack Ray's forced our hand to do this.
People watching at the moment.
Half the
501 wants to know what's a membership.
Okay, what's a membership? Okay. YouTube offers a equivalent to Patreon, where we give memberships. Now, what a membership is. A membership is when you support our channel financially, we give you certain extra benefits, such as loyalty badges, extra content, priority in responding to channel comments, free questions. Even at the highest tiers of membership, we even offer, say, one-on-one live streams. So basically, in that particular case, we would do a StreamYard video where you get to come on and talk to me face to face. So it's not just this one-way interaction where you're posting in a live chat and I'm responding to you, but you get to be in video on the channel. Okay?
Transmission was disrupted for the better good.
Transmission. Japan's Con Rafi. Transmission was disrupted for the better good. Awesome. Now, one of the things about memberships is that somebody else can sponsor your membership. I didn't know that either, to be honest. We just learned this, okay? Actually, the whole membership thing was recommended by one of our moderators, and he said, basically, you should put this on because people love the content, people want to support it, and this is a great way to do it. So we took Renzo Flute's advice here, and we said, okay, yeah, absolutely, we'll try it out. So Jack Ray just basically sponsored 20 members, and thank you so very much. That's just incredible. I'm just wow, I'm flabbergasted by this. This is just amazing. So thank you so much, Jack Ray. I mean, just wow. Wow. And this is something that gives back too. So it's just I'm floored. So really, thank you very much, Jack.
So Bubba Homeschool is sponsoring him. Any Jack Ray question?
Okay, so I think we're done with the non-super chats. Let's get to the super chats. I'm just floored. That's 20 memberships. Wow. Yeah, I can see the icons here. They're already getting the badges instantly. Okay. Oh, just there was one other something else here. Okay, I'm gonna actually take this. There's a couple non-super chats that I wanted to take too. I'll take this one from 501 Mobius because I think this is a good question. Othniel, a judge that protected Israel from Cushan Rishathaim, twice evil Cushite, king of Aram Naharaim, Judges 3:10. Why were there Cushites in northwest Mesopotamia? Was Moses' wife one of these people? No. Okay. Moses' wife was a Cushite. Cushan Rishathaim was a Kishite. Okay. Here is what we have to. This is one of those sort of, and we're going to actually do a video that sort of touches on this, and I think on Monday, which is The Pentateuch is not always clear what is a Cushite and what's a Kishite. Okay? Now, this king of Aram Naharaim. Now, Aram Naharaim is what was left of the Mitanni Empire when it fell apart. Okay, when the Mitanni Empire fell apart, it broke up into these little Aramean states. And that became Aram Naharaim. Now, Kish, not Cush, Kish, was a city in northwest Mesopotamia that had dominion over Mari, Ebal, and a large portion of Aram. Okay? So, the problem with Hebrew is it was an entirely consonantal language until the Iron Age. And when it got into the Iron Age, the so-called Middle Hebrew phase, the scribes started adding vowels to try to differentiate between various words that were homonymic. Okay? Unfortunately, by the time of the Iron Age, Kish was no longer a major power. In fact, it was nothing at all. It wasn't even a notable city anymore. So they took the only other place that was notable, which was Cush, which was south of Egypt, and put the wrong vowels in. Okay? So anyway, this is what's going on here, is that what we have here is a limitation of the language that in an update has made a scribal error. So what we should be reading is Kishan Rishathaim, twice evil Kishite, a king from Mesopotamia. So there's no Cushites in Aram, but there are Kishites. It's a subtle, fine difference in vowel, but it makes every difference to the meaning. Tim Miara asks the follow-up question. Let me see if I can find that here so I can post that. Yeah, I know. All right. There. Do you mean Mater Lexiconius vowels or Nikud? Later, he's asking basically a fine grammatical question here. Mater Lectionis is basically consonants that are inserted to simulate vowels, and they come in during the Iron Age, or Nikud, which is the general Masoretic pointings. We mean here lectionis vowels. That's what we mean here. So this is a change that happens during the Iron Age. So this is not happening during the Masoretic period. So not during the 10th century AD, but more to the 7th or 8th century BC. So that's what's going on here. So this is the Mater issue, not the Nikud issue. Okay? So that's a great grammatical question. Gosh, I'm so privileged to have a educated audience that even can ask this question. Okay, I mean, I'm thrilled with this question. Absolutely thrilled that I have somebody in my audience who can actually, differentiate this question.
Yeah. Darkly, is that actually a grammar question or phenomenal?
Oh, wow. You made my day, Tim. You absolutely made my day.
Make a note.
Oh my gosh. Jack Ray just gifted another 20. Hey, Jack. Thank you for another 20 memberships. By the way, PR wants to be a member. She's not a member by default, so. Wow. Yeah, Danny Dement gift train. No kidding. Well, thank you very much, Jack. Incredible. Okay, so Tim, that one question here totally made my live stream. That made my live stream. I'm so thrilled. All right.
The Sam of Jack. These are absolutely.
Yes, Jack Ray made my day too. This is turning out to be an incredible live stream, and we were only just like half an hour in. All right. So anyway, let's get back to the super chats here. Otherwise, we'll never get through them. Okay, back to the top here. Actually, we weren't even on the super chats yet. Oh, how did I do that? Jack Ray, you have to set accept gifts in order to get them. Oh, you have to accept them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to do that exactly. I've never accepted one, so I don't know how it's done. So if someone knows, please put it in the live stream so people can figure out how to do it. Okay, so I want to thank 501 Mobius for that great question, and Tim for that awesome question, and Jack for those memberships. Wow. All right, so let's get to the super chats here. Our first super chat here is from Asawir for $4.99, and he asks, "Funniest interaction you've ever had with a fundamentalist?" Winky face. I don't think I've ever had a funny interaction with a fundamentalist. They're very serious. They don't. I mean, I've had lots of funny interactions with Ron Wyatt people, but I've never had one with a fundamentalist. They get upset really easy, so you have to be kind of careful with them. You just don't want to tick them off. You just don't want to tick them off. And yeah, that's weird. That counts. Well, you've already heard my story of what I would consider the funniest interaction with Ron Wyatt. But okay, I'll tell you a different one though. But there's so many with the Ron Wyatt people.
Say the first one.
I get constant accusations of being Satan incarnate. And I keep telling him that Satan's out of the office, but I'll make sure that he calls you back at his earliest convenience. The other one that sort of amused me recently, and this one's fairly recent, was somebody told me that that she didn't need to be an archaeologist to know that Ron Wyatt's archaeology was true. And it's like, how does that work? You don't know anything about archaeology, but somehow you know his archaeology is true. I don't see how that works, but wow. So anyway, yeah, you don't get a lot, as I say, you don't get a lot of funny stories from fundamentalists. You do occasionally get, I'll have to say this, you do get occasional funny stories from atheists and liberals, because they have their own way of thinking and their own way of doing things. But definitely, fundamentalists don't have a great sense of humor. So, it's a little hard to do that. All right, so anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. What?
Last membership comment. Japanese Conrad. Yay! I got my membership. I was already feeling like a lost soul in a Calvinist convention.
Well, it looks like Jack Ray's making everybody's day here. Let's see if I can. Yay! I got my membership. I was feeling like a soul in a Calvinist convention. Thank you, Jack.
And Jack has take all
the emojis I can't show because of StreamYard. Wonderful. Yeah, he's got the emojis up of Merneath and the logo and cool Dr. Falk and Mr. EC. Cool. Very cool. He's already playing with the benefits of membership. All right, get back. The next super chat here is from Aspen. We were from 499. He goes, quote, our live stream Q&A sessions generally run for 2 hours, end quote. Might want to change that, laugh out loud. Oh, yeah. That is so out of date. It's not even funny. What? How many live streams did we actually get that were 2 hours? The first one? That was it? Yeah, first one. Yeah, we might want to change that for sure. I'm out of coffee already. I'll be right back. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill a thermos.
Okay. Oh.
I'm back. All right. Got my coffee. I filled the thermos too, so I don't have to run away anymore. Yeah, that's kind of a little out of date, isn't it? Yeah, we've only had one live stream that went for 2 hours, so yeah, anyone who joins the channel tonight is getting a membership, and that's just like totally awesome. Totally awesome. All right. So anyway, thank you very much, Addison, for the super chat. Yeah, we gotta change that. Honestly, I don't think we've had a live stream go less than 3 hours like forever. So yeah, thank you for the heads up. Okay. Mouthwash here for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Amarna letters 74 and 290 mention a bit nin urta in reference to Israelites in the area of Jerusalem. I've heard the claim that the ideogram nim urta may be pronounced Suman, Temple of Suman. No. All right. I am going to bring up, now I couldn't find that reference in Amarna letter 74, so I don't think that's correct, but I did find it in 290. So we're going to take Anson Rainey's translation here because it's a really good translation. And I am going to try to bring it up on the screen here. Let's see here. And just take me a moment to get this up here. Capture. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to find it here. All right, here we go. All right. All right, I got Anson Rainey's translation of the Amarna letters. Now, what's really good about this translation is he also has the transliterated script as well. So that's really helpful when you're dealing with Akkadian. Okay, so, and you can see it here in lines 15 and 16. This is the appropriate place here, where it talks about Urukur Urushalim. Okay, Urushalim. Okay, so it's talking about the city of Jerusalem. And then Uru e Ninib. Now, Anson Rainey's translation of this is a town of the land of Jerusalem, its name being Bet Ninib. Okay, so I do not think that this can be translated to Suman. Akkadian is actually, these are ideograms. Now, there is a possibility that it could be translated as something else, but Shuman is not one of them. And I don't, in this particular case, Nin Urta does not seem to be a viable translation either. Rainey's a very good scholar. He's very thorough. So I trust his transliteration and his translation here. Moran was a very good translator, okay? But Rainey's a little more current and a little more thorough. So I have serious doubts about the claim that it could mean the Temple of Solomon. And frankly, this would not be, and I think what you're driving at here is that this is supposed to mean the Temple of Solomon. And the problem here is that Solomon is not Shuman. It would be Shlomo. So it's not even a good transliteration. So I think this really breaks down etymologically. So anyway, the whole idea that this could be, I've heard the claim that this is supposed to be, that the whole idea that this Temple of Solomon predates the Israelite expansion itself, which the Amarna letters would basically do predate, say, the Exodus, and as such, you know, if that case could be made, and I don't think it can be, you know, it would provide etymological evidence. But the problem is, the etymology is wrong. It's completely wrong. The whole idea that Shulman is Shlomo ain't gonna work. In some ways, this is an attempt to back translate an Akkadian text to an English transliteration. Problem is, the ancient Israelites didn't speak English, so it's going to completely fail. So anyway, I hope that helped. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And I'm glad we could pull up a text and actually look at it to see what was going on here. Jack Ray for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Above everything else here. Wow. I mean, he's been super generous tonight. This has been amazing. Okay, sponsor a live super chat. Let's see. There was a question here that I did want to take. I think it was Talitha's. Here it is. Okay. Talitha asks a great question here. Were Egyptian gods and goddesses like Heka or Ma'at the more abstract ones, considering deities by the time of Moses, or just concepts? Interesting questions. Great question. Now, there comes a point in Egyptian history where Egyptian gods become considered more like abstract concepts, like forces of nature, ideals. But in the time of Moses, they're still considered to be deities. So, at the time of Moses, Heka is still considered the god of magic, and Ma'at, the goddess of balance and order. So this is how they didn't have ideas of, say, pure concepts, but they considered concepts to be deities, what they would call the Necharu, gods and gods. Oh my gosh, he sponsored another 20 super chats. Okay, did you get your membership? No? Oh, well. Kiara really wants her membership. Mm. Okay. So yeah, that's what's going on here in the time of Moses, is these are considered to be gods and goddesses. They're not quite, the Egyptian religion has not quite advanced to the point where they're considering these gods to be abstractions or ideas that are deified. It's kind of the reverse. They're considered gods that are associated with ideas. So anyway, it's a great question. Thank you very much for the question. And thank you, Jack Ray, for sponsoring that question. Okay. Our next super chat here is from Amanda S. for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Falk. I am eager to hear your perspective on the Exodus plagues. Okay, I'm eager to give it to you. Specifically, what do you think each plague was or was not, and its impact on the land and people? Thank you. Okay, great question. The Exodus plagues are essentially a set of 9 to 10 plagues that were essentially meteorological, hydrological events that happened to Egypt. Okay? Now, what we know from the texts of ancient Egypt is that these are events that seem to have happened at least periodically to Egypt as a whole. Like, for example, in the case of the blotting out of the sun. We do know that Egypt did suffer from time to time with sandstorms. Now, a sandstorm combined with forest fires had this effect of creating a sooty black, basically ash, that, say, blacked out everything. And one of the things about this was, it was said that the darkness that fell upon the land could be felt inside of the homes. Now, you don't get that with eclipses. You don't get that with, say, extent with just night, but it does happen with sand. The dust and the ash filling the homes. Like the plague, like the river turning to blood. That is recorded as happening once during the first intermediate period. So these are events that seem to happen at times of particularly high inundation periods. So, it does seem that this is these are events that happen that coincide with the flooding of the Nile, but in a hypernatural way. So these aren't your normal flooding events. These are when sort of things go a little berserk. And I prefer the term hypernatural here over supernatural because they're natural events, but they're also natural events that are extreme. So one of the things I would also resist to is the whole idea that each plague was a challenge to the gods of Egypt. Now, I know that's a very, very popular interpretation, but I also think it's reading beyond the text. Now, there's only one plague of Egypt that the Bible says was a challenge to the gods of Egypt, which was the final plague, the Passover plague. All the previous plagues are just plagues. The Bible does not say that the previous 9 plagues are an attack on the gods. I heard an interview with Gary Rensburg today where he basically says all the plagues are challenging the gods. And I think that's really, really wrong-headed in a lot of ways. So, anyway, I think that these are, as I say, normal events that have been amplified in a sense that it creates a grave suffering upon the people of Egypt. Now, they're also temporary. Most of these events are in accordance to the agricultural cycle. So, for example, the destruction of the barley crop. It's going to affect water purity. People are going to get sick, and that's going to happen. But it's going to be replaced by the next agricultural cycle. Almost all these plagues are going to be rectified by the next agricultural cycle. The only plague that seems to last beyond that particular agricultural cycle will be the destruction of trees. And that's going to affect the funerary customs and cultures of Egypt, to the extent where they have to start importing wood at the end of Dynasty 20 and 21. That's really the only plague that has long-term outcomes here. So anyway, great question. I hope that helped answer the question. Thank you very much for the question, and I very much appreciate the support of the channel. Okay, just here. Okay, our next super chat here is also from Amanda S. Thank you very much for that great super chat. And she asks, what is your opinion about Michael Hassel's argument in Military Practice and Polemic that the laws in Deuteronomy only make sense in 1500 to 1000 BC Egypt? Okay, generally, I would agree with this. My one misgiving about this is that 1500 to 1000 BC is an incredibly long span of time. You're talking here from the end of the Middle Bronze Age to the beginning of the Iron Age. That's a long span of time. 500 years is a long time. So I think that this is one of those things where I agree with it in principle, but I'd like to see how he reasons this. Okay? I know how I would reason it, but I'd like to still see how he reasons it. So I agree with him. I absolutely agree with him, but I still would like to see how he rationalizes it. It'd be very interesting to find out how he rationalizes it. So, I mean, that's my general opinion, but without knowing some specifics, it's hard to know where points I would agree or disagree with. But yeah, overall, agree with him, but I'd still love to see how he does this. Okay? He's probably right. In fact, I would probably bet he is right. But again, I'm all about. One of the things I think is really, really important, is how do we arrive at these decisions? How do we arrive at these conclusions? And for me, I mean, I'm a big how do I say this? Big believer in showing your work. Okay, if you're a mathematician, you know it's not enough to just show the answer. You have to show your work, the process of thinking that got you there. I'd love to see how he got there. So, as I say, love to see more of his work and see how he got there. And I'm inclined to agree with him so far. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Okay, next super chat here is for $5 from N Japonis Conrafi. And he says, what do you think churches need more of today in terms of either preaching or education? By the way, happy owner of the Ark of the Covenant in its Egyptian context. And he is he has of course just put in a plug for my book, which I have buried somewhere here under a stack of other books. He's talking, of course, about this book, which is my book, The Ark of the Covenant in its Egyptian Context, an Illustrated Journey. I'm glad you like the book. We enjoyed making it. In fact, what we do want to do is we want to make our future books very similar in that regard. So lots of photographs, lots of illustrations, and enjoyable to read. And that's one of the things we're trying to work towards right now, is we're trying to work towards the point where I can sort of quit my day job and write books again full time. That is one thing about having a pandemic, that was that I had the freedom to write during then. Renzo flutes, I like pictures. Well, you know what? We like pictures too. Pictures are good. Pictures keep you engaged. You know. Oh yeah. Yeah, the stories I have behind those pictures. Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a few stories behind those pictures. Let me see. Oh, the arc picture I made. Okay. The arc picture I made. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, I gotta have it here somewhere. I know I have it in here. All right. He's talking about this one, where we did a computer render of the Ark of the Covenant. But I'm going to tell you one story about one of the pictures. Okay? I'm going to show you this one here, because this one has a story. And anytime you have a... This one right here. Yeah, it's kind of glaring here, but it's basically, you got the Milky Way, we're at Abu Simbel, and there's a little meteor going on. Okay, there's actually a meteor in the photo. But the story is, it's the middle of the night. Okay, I'm taking this photo. Now, there's 2 packs of dogs fighting all around me while I'm trying to pick this picture. And they're not that far away. They're like only 20 feet, and they're just attacking each other. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I've got the tripod set up. I've got my night vision, my night lenses on there, and it's like it's just pandemonium all around me. Meanwhile, 30 feet away in Lake Nasser, I'm hearing the chirp of the crocodiles. Okay. Oh yeah, Dark Blake, criticize me on my grammar, okay? So here, I mean, it's the most unnerving photograph I've ever had to take, because as I said, there's packs of dogs just fighting and chewing each other up, and crocodiles in the water, and it's like I want to take this photo and I want to get to my hotel room now. And I'm not gonna tell my wife till years after I get this book published. Oh yeah, as and weird. You must have felt totally safe. Yeah, totally safe. Totally. Of course the guards have gone home for the night. So if I get attacked, I'm done. I mean, there's no help. Linguist Amos. Anubis tried to make things difficult. Well, yeah, sorta. So, yeah, there's a lot of background stories to that, to that book. I might someday write a corollary to that book, basically talking about all the background stories to every photo. But I won't do it right now. But oh yeah, that was good times, man. Good times. Okay, so to get back to your principal question here. What do you think churches need more of today in terms of either preaching or education? Everyone needs to get back into the Bible. That's really the long and short of it. Everybody needs to get back in the Bible. The preachers need to get back in the Bible. And when I mean get back in the Bible, I mean they need to do proper expository sermons. They need to spend that 15 to 20 hours a week to study the Bible to preach. Every expository sermon requires 15 to 20 hours to write. 10 to 15 hours of that should be just studying the Bible. Going through the commentaries, reading the Greek and Hebrew. Really getting into the text. The lack of biblical literacy in the church today is appalling. And it's appalling for one particular reason. It's appalling because we've never had so many good biblical resources available to us. There's really no excuse for this. We have resources today that scholars of 100 years ago would just drool over. Okay? We have the resources. We're just not reading them. We've become a culture of non-readers.
In fact, most pastors do not read or they're not doing their job.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we find, for example, from the book of Revelation is the book of Revelation says, "Blessed are those that read this book and hear its words." Read this book. We are supposed to be readers of the word. Okay? This is a culture shift in their time, but it applies to us today. You know, one of the things I'm really sort of shocked at was when I went through the book of Hebrews, and they talk, the author of the book of Hebrews talks about how, you know, they are, that the Hebrews are, they know their Old Testament, but they don't know their New Testament. They know their Old Testament inside out, upside down, but they don't know the New Testament. Now, at this end of the telescope, I'm going, man, if the parishioners I'm around know their Old Testament as well as the Hebrews, the people that the book of Hebrews was targeted towards, wow, we'd be so much better off. You know, at least you'd know 5/6 of the Bible. We have a culture today, a church today, that doesn't know either the Old Testament or the New. Our churches today are pig ignorant. And that's putting it very politely. They are pig ignorant.
Your pastors demand they spend their
Oh boy, that's a good comment, and I'm gonna highlight that. Just need to make a note where I am though. Patui says, pay your pastors and demand they spend that salary sitting on their keister, sitting in his heart. Amen. Amen, amen, legahumin. Scholar pastors were always rare, but now they're on the knife's edge of extinct. And yes, and that's because they've been driven out of the pulpit. Scholar pastors are an endangered species. They are an endangered species. You could barely find them now. I was helping once a church do a pastor selection. I was reviewing resumes for them, giving basically my 2 cents. They had offered me the position, and I turned it down to go do my PhD. But I got the opportunity to review the pastors. I'll tell you what. 8 out of 10 resumes either had a lie in them, okay, and an easily detectable lie. Like for example, I came across a resume where a guy claimed to have a demon from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. You know what? You can look that up in their card catalog. It's publicly available. Yeah, there was no demon there. You know, the guy lied about his credentials. But what's more surprising was an equal number, 8 out of 10. Their primary qualification was that they had been a used car salesman. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding about this. I wish I was. That their primary qualification was that they had a sales position, not a theological education or theological position.
All wanted pastors. They all talked about how much the numbers had grown.
Yeah, and they're all putting on how what the numbers of their church had grown. My jaw literally dropped as I was reading these resumes. I could not believe it. Could not believe what I was reading. And if I hadn't put the brakes on these resumes, they would have gone into candidacy. just unbelievable that these people could just put up a shingle and say, hey, I used to sell cars. Now I'm a minister of the gospel. The church is in a decrepit state. It is in a decrepit state. And it's a decrepit state because the people have demanded that the pastors be exactly like them. And the pastors demand that they be exactly like the parishioners. So basically, both are wallowing in their own ignorance. It's a terrible, terrible state. Terrible, terrible state. I'll take this follow-up from Patui too. I know a pastor who got a demon from Ted's, and his dissertation was under 100 pages. Well, that's normal for a demon, honestly. With the next 58 pages being survey data and appendices. Again, normal for a demon. It wasn't bad work, but it wasn't hard-hitting scholarship. We have to understand what a demon is, okay? A demon, a doctor of ministry, is not it's not an academic doctorate. It's a professional doctorate. What's a professional doctorate? A professional doctorate is a academic credential that's used to give a pastor a pay raise. That's really what it is. It's not a mark of scholarship. Never has been. Melissa Butler. Demon, not demon. Laugh out loud. I was confused here. Yeah, it can get confusing sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, it's... Sometimes there's not a big difference, honestly. But to get back to the seriousness of the question, demons are not academic doctorates. They're only terminal degrees insofar as they are meant to give you a pay raise. That's it. They're really they're not scholarship. So you never want to confuse a demon with a PhD. So I heard demon is demon. Suffice to say, it's the most unfortunate abbreviated degree ever. Really, it is. Doctor of Ministry. That's what it means. As opposed to PhD, which is a Doctor of Philosophy.
Don't confuse me.
Demon looking at PhD. Don't confuse me with that. Let me explain. I thought he was saying pastors had demons or something. I was so confused.
I got a demon from my seminary.
Mouthwash, I got a demon from my seminary days. Alright, back to something a little more serious here. Patui, I had a demon holder as a theology prof. He demanded we call him doctor. We retaliated by him calling him the Right Honorable and Demon-Possessed Reverend Father, Dr. Bishop Professor, so-and-so. Well, again, they do have the right to be called doctor. I mean, that's an honor that's bestowed upon by the college. It's just sort of a disingenuous... it's a disingenuous kind of doctorate. It's again, they do this as a way of as I say, boosting salary, but I wouldn't want to be taught by one of these people. They don't have the street cred, really. And to be honest, to be a teacher of this sort of as a professor of theology, you should have that kind of street cred if you're doing this. So I think I do disagree with the whole idea that this doctorate exists just to give a pay boost. But again, I don't hold a DMin. I hold a PhD. My theological credentials are bona fide, and they certainly haven't given me a pay raise. I'll say that. And that's the problem with the PhD. It won't give you a pay raise. So anyway, I will probably go on to the next super chat at this point, but again, I think there is an issue here with DMin holders sort of trying to fill in the position of PhDs because they don't have the education. They don't nearly have the qualifications. You've got. I mean, I saw some DMin dissertations that were 50 pages. I cataloged the dissertations at TEDS for the church history department, and I ran across some DMin ones, and they're tiny. Some of them, as I say, are 50, 60 pages. That's like maybe a master's thesis at best, or a major paper. So, Dr. Demento.
That's the best one.
From Jack Ray. Okay, so there's a whole issue wrapped up in the Doctor of Ministry thing. And it's not just one issue, it's many issues. So anyway, we're going to move on to the next super chat. I want to thank, let's see, where were we? We went down quite the rabbit trail there. So back to our super chats. I think it was Japonis that brought up the original here. Glad I took the timestamp here. All right. Yeah, Mechanics just said not going to pass the thump test. For anyone who wants to know what the thump test is, this is actually something that's done in PhDs. So, it's an interesting test. When you do your viva, your oral exam for your PhD, your examiners will come in and take your printed PhD and thump it on the table. If it makes a good thump, it's passed the thump test. If it doesn't make a thump because it's not heavy enough, then they're gonna put you through even more of a grinder, as it were.
If they talk about your brain on your PhD.
Yeah, my producer also said here, if they talk about your grammar on your PhD dissertation, you probably failed. So that's another issue. Mine more than passed the thump test. Mine was something like 750 pages. So, yeah. Definitely mine passed the thump test. All right. Our next super chat here is from the Camelopard for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. According to Mormons, Deuteronomy 6:4 has been tainted due to identifying Yahweh Jehovah as Elohim, Heavenly Father. Is there any possibility for this? Here's the problem. The problem here is that Mormon theology has to say that the Bible is tainted So that, and they will use the term as far as it is correctly translated. Now, Mormonism is not full of great translators. Sorry. But what they're going to try to say is that the Bible has been corrupted so that you can only now trust the new revelation. There is an inherent problem with this. And that inherent problem is that all revelation is progressive and it's validated progressively. So that your first revelation, basically the Torah, has to stand in order for every succeeding revelation to be validated. So we know that King David was telling the truth and was biblical revelation because he depends upon the Torah. And the Old Testament is solid and accepted as revelation, and because it's accepted as revelation and the New Testament is consistent with the Old Testament, we know now that the New Testament is biblical revelation. So then, if Mormon scriptures are biblical revelation, it has to be consistent with the New and the Old Testament. So what they're doing here is they are contesting the Old Testament and basically saying their new revelations are better and not tainted. That doesn't make sense logically or biblically. So it can't be. If the Mormon revelations are revelation from God, it has to be consistent with the New Testament and the Old Testament in their entirety. Not insofar as it is correctly translated, which is just doublespeak of saying it isn't. So in short, there's no possibility for this. And the fact is that the Mormon revelations are not consistent with the New and the Old Testament. So they would not be considered in the scope of the Christian church to be revelation. They are basically the writings of man, with all the error that comes with that. So anyway, I hope that helped. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Okay, the next one here is from Billy Ningen for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. And he says, Dr. Falk, it's been a while. Yes, it has. It's good to see you here tonight. If Kenneth Griffith is so confident in his scholarship, should we challenge him to present at U of Toronto or U of Chicago? All right. A couple things here. You'll never get an audience at U of Toronto or U of Chicago. Griffith is a adherent of Velikovsky and Corville. These are basically fringe academics. There's no way that he'll ever get an audience there. The second thing is that he can be confident all he wants. And a lot of hucksters are. Now, I'm not saying Griffith himself is a huckster, but the fringe element here is undeniable as well. You have to ignore so much data to get to where Corville wants to go that it's really not a viable option. A lot of these fringe scholars have to ignore huge amounts of evidence to get where they want to go. And it really becomes a contest of the fallacy of invincible ignorance. Okay? So you're going to spend all your time trying to argue that this evidence exists. Then they're just going to deny it exists. And this is just across the board for these kind of fringe scholars. Kenneth Griffith does it. His friend White does it. Corville did it. David Roll does it. We see this all across the board with the revisionist people who do revisionist chronologies. Is they have to basically deny the existence of huge sums of evidence to get where they're going. So there's really no point in challenging them. There's really no point in even debating them. You know, you'd spend all your time trying to convince them that the evidence exists. And if you... Okay, did you see that from Bain Ray? Yeah, you see the Bain Ray, if you click the gift icon at the top of the channel, see if you can accept one. So... Okay, so anyway, there's just no point in engaging these people any further than just, you know, pointing out their errors and, you know, letting people decide for themselves. So again, these people will be confident. They'll use sophism. You know, they'll be very sophistic in their rhetoric. But really, when it comes down to the facts, they just will sort of have a vacuous argument there. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. Billy Ingham again for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. If Abraham was an Amorite, could wandering Aramean in Deuteronomy 26:5 be a geographical identifier rather than an anachronism? Yeah, it is probably, but let's bring that up just because it's a nice thing to bring up. All right, we're going to do Deuteronomy 26. Always read the text. It's always good to read the text. 26 verse 5. And you shall answer and say before the Lord your God, my father was a wandering Aramean, and he went down to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number, but there he became great and mighty and populous nation. Okay. Now, this text here is not actually talking about Abraham. It's talking about Jacob. Okay, so it's actually talking about Jacob. But that's okay. That's okay, because by the time we get to Jacob, Abraham has moved. He's moved from Urkesh to Haran and then into the Levant. And he goes from being an Amorite into being a Levantine, at least in geography. Now, in the case of Jacob kind of does a little bit of the reverse. You know, he starts off as a Levantine, and then he actually spends some time in Aram, where he's serving Laban. Okay? You know, he spends a good time as Laban's servant to get his wives. So the idea of Jacob as a wandering Aramean makes sense. Now, there is some retrojection here. By the time Deuteronomy is written, the Mitanni Empire has fallen apart. So we're already at the period of time when this is being written. The whole area of the Mitanni Empire has become Aramean. Basically, the remnants of what the Israelites would call, and the Egyptians would call Naharaim. Basically, the kingdom of Aram. Or at least at this point, the fractured states of Aram. So anyway, so it's more of a retrojection here than it is it's a retrojection and a geographic identifier, and there's more than one type of anachronism too. So we got to keep that in mind. Not all anachronisms are errors. In fact, what we're going to do for the Monday video is we're actually going to talk about anachronisms, in which case we're going to talk about redactions, retrojections, and all that stuff. So we're going to get into those sort of texts, and even we're going to even talk about apparent anachronisms as well. So anyway, want to thank you very much for the super chat. I hope that helped. And it's definitely more of a retrojection and a geographical identifier. Okay. Our next super chat here is from Jonathan for $9.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. Not a super specific question, but can you go into some detail about the current state of the minimalist maximalist debates in academia beyond the major highlights like Jericho and Hatzor? Oh, sure. It used to be that the minimalist and maximalist debate was really far apart. Okay. And it really centered the sort of the flashpoint debate here was over the existence of the Davidic kingdom. Did King David exist? Did Solomon exist? What was the expanse of the kingdoms? Okay. Now, over time, that debate has become more narrowed. Maximalism has become, the pendulum has swung more towards minimalism, and likewise, minimalism has swung more towards maximalism. And you've got a huge amount of gray in the middle. Now, you do have, say, scholars like me who tend to be more on the maximalist spectrum. Likewise, you have scholars like Finkelstein that are very much more minimalist. Now, that debate has shifted. Now, almost all scholars now accept that that King David existed. So that debate has been sort of put to rest. That debate's been put to rest. So anyway, we're now more or less debating over other issues. The debate is more over stuff like, did Moses exist? Was there an Exodus? What was the scope of the Exodus? What was the scope of the biblical Davidic kingdom? What was the influence of, say, Solomon's kingdom? So we're more, at this point, debating over the fine points rather than sort of the big bullet points. So at that point, I think there's a lot of issues here that are the current state is a lot more over what is the meaning of what we're debating than, say, over existence or non-existence, with the exception of probably Moses. So anyway, that's sort of the current state of the debate. Again, there's a huge spectrum of gray in the middle. It may polarize, it may not. We don't know yet. And there's still a lot more that's going on about this. So anyway, thank you very much for that super chat. I hope that helped. We tried to flesh this out in a little more detail to let you know the state of the debate. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Yeah? Why not? All right. All right, so let's go on to the next super chat here. Have you right-clicked? All right, next super chat here is from Asim Weir from 199. Thank you very much for the super chat. Favorite Egyptologist for real this time? Kenneth Kitchen. That's my favorite Egyptologist. Spent 3 years as his research assistant. Love the man. Good friend. Excellent scholar. I learned everything I know about epigraphy from him. I learned everything I know from chronology from him. So, plus he told a lot of great stories about World War II. Fabulous stories. Oh yeah, his libraries are phenomenal too. Just really interesting guy. You know, really he's lived a interesting life. Why am I not surprised? Says Asin. Well, you didn't ask a provocative question there. So yeah, that's sort of my pick here. That's my favorite Egyptologist. What can I say? Not a terribly surprising answer, but hey, he's a cool guy. All right, next super chat here is from Billy Ningen again for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. Where was the idea of 7th century Egyptian context of the Exodus from? It's from the documentary hypothesis, essentially. Slavery in Egypt in the 7th century tended to be domestic and small scale. Doesn't fit with foreign slavery in the Bible. God bless. Okay, there's another place where it comes from too, which is from the excavations of Jack Holliday. Now, what happened is that Jack Holliday excavated Tel El Mascuda, which he had identified as Pithom. Now, there is an inscription at Tel El Mascuda that identifies the site as Pithom. And what happened was, Holliday excavates Pithom, and he digs, and he finds nothing older there than the 7th century BC. And then Holliday declares, well, Pithom can't be any older than the 7th century. Therefore, the biblical accounts must have been no earlier than the 7th century BC. Well, he's operating from an absence of evidence argument here. We don't find anything older than 7th century at Tel El Mascuda. Tel El Mascuda is Pithom. Therefore, the biblical accounts can't be any older than the 7th century. Bad reasoning, Jack Holliday. You know, this is tripped up so many archaeologists and historians. It's not even funny. Not even funny. Because the Czech concession at Tel El Retaba found evidence that Tel El Retaba was also Pithom and dates to the Ramesside period, 13th century. Oops. Now we have 2 sites that are Pithom. Tel El Mascuda and Tel El Retaba. And in all likelihood, the original is Tel El Retaba. And then it moves, like many cities do. You know, this happens frequently in the ancient Near East, where, you know, a site, you know, comes under a certain name, it's a important site, and then it just picks up moves to a new location. Migdol did this. You know, Hatzor probably did this. So that's where this idea comes from. It comes from Jack Holliday. And it was widely accepted. And in fact, you still hear this argument being used. Even though we now have evidence to the contrary. Still hear it. Because in many ways, the wheels of skepticism are slow to turn. So anyway, that's where it comes from. I hope that helps. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Okay, Courtney Thompson for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. What is the best explanation for the death of the mummy of Ramses II? Was there sea salt found in his mummy, severe arthritis, gum mouth infection, tada? Okay, the best explanation for the death of Ramses II is old age. The dude's in his 90s, man. I mean, there was no sea salt found on the mummy. There's found natron. Okay, now natron is not sea salt, but all mummies have been treated with natron. Okay, so you're going to find natron on every mummy that ever existed, because that's how they desiccated the corpse. But there's no sea salt. There's no sand in the nostrils or in the mouth, which is what would happen if Ramses II had drowned in, say, any situation, especially one that involved turbulence of the water. He did have severe arthritis, of course, at the age of 96-ish. I mean, he's in his late 90s when he died. Okay. He is not. Look, this guy's not riding chariots in his old age. He dies around was it 1222 BC is I think was his date of death. I mean, he's old. I mean, really, really old. He's not riding chariots anymore. He probably hasn't been riding chariots at this point for 30 years. I mean, he's had his Hebsed festivals over and over and over and over again. Yeah, I think his last Hebsed festivals probably took a long time to complete. I mean, yeah, he was really advanced in years. And he had all the problems of advanced age. So he had some coronary issues. He had incredibly advanced arthritis. He probably would have had some dental issues, particularly with particular dental caries. But yeah, there's no evidence that he drowned. None at all. In fact, all the evidence points to the contrary, that he just died of old age. So that's the best explanation for the death of Ramses II. Is the ticker just gave out. That just did. So anyway, I want to thank you for that super chat. We do get that question sometimes, but it's really the guy was old, man. He was just old, and just that seems to complications resulting from old age. So anyway, I want to thank you for that super chat. Very much appreciated, and I hope that helped. All right, the next one here is from Jack Weir for $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. How much did you know about the Bible before getting your first Bible-related degree? Ooh, interesting question. We were actually, my producer and I were actually talking about this earlier in the day. One of the things we were talking about was, what did we know about the Bible prior to going and getting a seminary education? And what we could sort of discussed was the fact that compared to basically other other Christians and other pastors even, we actually knew a fair bit. Okay. We were probably, in fact, one of the things that sort of made me decide to go to seminary was I was actually in a membership, a meeting for membership in a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod congregation. And the person that was interviewing us for membership said to me, you know so much about the Bible. Why aren't you a pastor? And well, it was just like, first of all, I'd never considered it. Second of all, I was still a computer tech. And, frankly, I had a very, very lucrative career as a computer systems analyst. So for me, it was just like, okay, I have a career already. Why would I want another? So, we were very well studied. I'd already read extensively into things like the Church Fathers. I had already known Hebrew. I already could read Hebrew before getting my first Bible-related degree. And that's because I actually took Hebrew in my undergrad. Okay. So I could already read Hebrew. I couldn't read Greek. I didn't know Greek before my first Bible-related degree. But I already could read Hebrew. So I already knew a fair bit about the Old Testament. I was also really into apologetics. Now, I'm not into apologetics now for that much. I now consider myself more of an educator than an apologist. But, I was into apologetics, especially counter-cult ministries. I had done some volunteer work in counter-cult ministries and, had done that for a while. So I did know a lot, and I was very into the Bible. I've always been an avid Bible reader. So, my producer actually had more, before I had got my first Bible-related degree, my producer had already had her first Bible-related degree in systematic theology. So, she was actually in some ways a little ahead of me on this. So, yeah, I actually knew a fair amount, but I'll say this too. In the 6 years I spent at seminary, I learned more in that 6 years than in the previous 20. It's sort of just put my learning on, say, in a high speed mode. Really, I wouldn't be the scholar and teacher I am today without seminary. I owe seminary a huge debt. Again, without that 6 years, I could not make up in that 6 years if I had spent another 20 years in self-study.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and my producer just said, you don't know what you don't know. And that's what it comes down to, is you don't know what you don't know. Seminary will show you what you don't know. And in my case, it turned out to be a lot. An awful lot.
Thank you, but yes, sir.
Get my timestamp here, and then I'll take that. Oh, like, you're not that old, Volker. Yes, I am. I am. I should probably ask you, how old do you think I am? Before. Yeah, I'm probably older than you think I am. Camel Leopard 32. Oh, bless your heart. No, you're not ancient Egypt in the Bible. Slammer. Slammer, you're not ancient Egypt in the Bible. Well, I'm old.
Not compared historically to ancient Egypt.
Yeah, I'm not historically to ancient Egypt, but oh, we got some guesses here. Aleko is setting 44. Darkblade is guessing 53. Let Me Explain says 57. Christian Malice 50s. Jack Ray 42, of course, a proper number. Well, yeah, that's a very interesting number. We got a range of guesses. Here.
He's not as old as pyramids.
Linguist asks, folks, he's not as old as the pyramids themselves. Unless I'm a Nephilim. Maybe I'm a Nephilim. Who knows? Yeah, if I'm a Nephilim, you never know. I could be one of those elder Necharu. Who knows? Could be.
Does he have 6 fingers?
I don't think it's a requirement for Nephilim to have 6 fingers, but you never know. Not tall enough. Slammer, are you saying I'm short?
I've never seen Dr. Falcon and Nephilim in the same room.
I've never seen Dr. Falcon and Nephilim in the same room. Could be. Could be. Now, I have been accused of being a Sith Lord. I have been accused of being Palpatine. That has happened. Okay, that was fun. Let's get back to the super chats here. Okay, I left off at 8:19. Okay. 8:19. Back to the. Okay. Okay, the next one here is from Bubba Whole School for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. Any Jack Ray question except Bonbon. Love you, Bonbon. Okay, let's find a non-super chat here. Do mark the timestamp again. So let's find a non-super chat, a juicy non-super chat. Juicy questions. Well, you did ask a question yourself that I could take here. Well, that's an interesting question. Okay, I'll take this one from Talitha. What was Hur's relationship to Moses? His brother-in-law, husband of Miriam, or his nephew, son of Miriam? I've seen both from various sources. We're not sure. To my knowledge, Hur's relation is not explained. I'll take a quick look here just to confirm. Yeah. Yeah. As far as we can tell, there's no marital relationship here between there's no blood ties here between Moses and Hur. Now, Hur's a very important figure in the whole Exodus narrative. He's a really, really important figure. He's basically the tribe leader of the tribe of Judah. Okay, so that's his position here. He is the tribe leader of Judah. So he's the leader of the tribe of Judah. He is also the grandfather of Bezalel. Okay, Bezalel, which was the craftsman who created the Ark of the Covenant and the Tabernacle. So he's the third most important man among the Israelites. So the sort of the pecking order here is basically Moses, Aaron, and then Hur. So he is a very, very important figure, but there does not seem to be any marital relation as far as I can tell. Now, maybe somebody else knows a passage in the Bible that does describe this, but I haven't encountered one myself that describes his. Darkblade says, I'm guessing he was named after horse. He was. Okay? Yeah, that is correct. Hur is named after horse. So, it is a horse. He is basically named after horse. The name in Egyptian is Hor. It's Hor. So when it's translated into Hebrew, it becomes Hur. So, yes, it is an Egyptian name. That is correct. And it does come from, he is the clan leader, the tribe leader of the tribe of Judah. But as far as we know, there does not seem to be any sort of marital relationship between him and the Levites. As far as we can tell, that doesn't mean that there couldn't have been. We just don't know if there was. We're not told. Some of this is going to come out of rabbinical stuff. And that rabbinical stuff is speculation. All of it. Almost all of rabbinical tradition is speculation. So unless I have a biblical text, I'm not going to make that inference. So anyway, thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciate it. And thank you very much for sponsoring that question. Yeah, it is a kind of an unfortunately pronounced name, but it's foreign languages. Foreign languages will do that to you. So anyway, I want to thank Bubba Homeschool here for sponsoring that question. And I see our our members here are having fun with their new mochis. All right. Bubble Homeschool here for $5. Thank you very much for the super chat. And he wants us to take Bubble Homeschool's David Roll question from earlier. All right, let's find it. I can find it. Looking for your question. David Roll question from earlier. Not seeing. Yeah, mine. Timestamp.
Would you
Give me a timestamp. Oh.
team up with David Roll musically?
Okay, I see it. Timestamp is 10:02. All right, the question is, would you team up with David Roll musically? No. We have very different tastes in music. Very different tastes. And different ideas of production. I do my own musical production. So I'm my own. I do the entire studio process on my own. So I compose the music, I play the music, I produce the music, and I do my own studio work. Okay, so I'm a control freak as far as my music goes. I'm a total control freak. Once I start composing, it's like, yeah, don't get between me and my music. So, I'm just, yeah, I'm not going to be happy with anyone who wants to inject his own ideas into my music. And I'm just not gonna tolerate that. So, no, I really, I go complete diva artist when I start composing, and I get in that zone. I get into that zone where once I start composing, don't interrupt me. Yeah, okay, make me a sandwich and leave it on the table, but don't interrupt me. Don't get between me and the music. Because, the way I compose music is a train of consciousness. It's a total train of consciousness. I can hear the music in my head. I can hear the music in my head as I'm composing it. And I have to compose it in such a way that it matches what's in my head. So anybody else who interferes with that is not going to get a happy reception from me. I get really moody when I compose. So thus I'm hands-on on the entire process. As I said, the composition, the orchestration, and the production of it. So yeah, laugh out loud. Musicians are the worst. Yeah, we're total prima donnas. It's like total people dumb. This is one of the reasons why I hid my identity as a musician for so long, is because I don't play nice with others when I do music. I just don't play nice with others. So it's just like, yeah, getting me up in a church band would not go well. That's not gonna. No one's gonna be happy with that.
Dark Blade, new Dr. Falk River, the A and Day Falk.
New Dr. Falk rumor. The A in Dr. David A. Falk stands for acoustics. What a drama queen. Yeah, probably. Musicians laugh out loud. Musicians are the worst. Totally. Yeah. There are reasons why I'm a soloist. Laughed out loud. I totally get it. Absolutely get that. Yeah, I don't blame you. Patui says there are some really good guitar amp modeling software out there that plus headphones is a godsend. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's some really good amps. It still doesn't. I will say this: there are some really good amp modeling software out there. It still doesn't crush the tones as well as a good pedal, but it's close. In many ways, it's very, very close. But at the same time, too, I don't need that as much when I start composing. It's only when I start orchestration that I really need that. So anyway, that's been fun. Thank you very much for that super chat. Very much appreciated. Okay, so back to the 820s. Okay, down. Okay, next super chat here is from Addison Weir for 499. Thoughts on the following argument? See non-super chat. Premise 1, blah. Premise 2, blah blah. Premise 3, therefore, blah 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 blah. Yeah. There's too many blahs here. Doesn't follow. It's too blah of a premise, yeah. You know, if you had blah and then blah blah, you could then imply blah blah blah. But you have overextended your conclusion. You've read too much into it by adding that fourth blah. Oh well. Let me explain. There might be some empty conjecture there. Could be. Could be. Thank you for the super chat. All right, Aleko for $5 Australian. Thank you very much for this super chat. Shalom, Falkers. Well, shalom to you too. And Shabbat Shalom. And everyone, love the laugh, Doc. Well, you know what? That's one of the things we love about doing these Friday nights is we love laughing. And, we enjoy this. We really, really enjoy these question and answer things. It's the highlight of our week. It really is. We love the banter, we love the wordplay, we love the joking around. It's just, and yet we also love the opportunity to teach too. We've always said that our channel is here to not just inform you, but to entertain you as well. So, we dig this. We really dig this. And, you get to learn a bit about us. And, you get to maybe learn a bit about the ancient Near East as well. So, we have a lot of fun with this. And we like having fun about this. And we're building a community that enjoys it too. So, yeah. Yeah. As my producer says, this is a place where you come where you like to laugh, essentially. So,
If you don't have a sense of humor, you probably
Danny Dement, puns, so many glorious puns. Ah, yes. We love the puns. It's very punny. All right, so thank you for the super chat. We very much appreciate it, and we thank you for the support of the channel. It does help us out in more ways than just in entertaining us on Friday. We really, really do appreciate the support of the channel because it helps us, keep food on our tables and helps us to do this next week. All right, we got a really, really generous super chat here from Moise Salazar. Thank you very much for that really super generous super chat. That's wow. Really wow. Very, very much appreciate that. And he says, I think my crazy idea, the God reconsumed the Ark of the Covenant. It is hint that the Ark final destiny was planned by the Lord, hence it could have been either destroyed or lost. Please comment. Okay. The best testimony we have for the final destiny of the Ark of the Covenant comes from actually Jeremiah. And in Jeremiah, he says all the articles of the temple were taken to Babylon. Now, while the ark is not in the articles that are returned from Babylon, it is presumed that the ark was destroyed. Now, here's the other thing we have to keep in mind with the ark. The ark was not just a ritual box. It basically, the mercy seat was a zone of sacred space where the Lord himself, his Shekinah glory, dwelled. Now, the thing with the Shekinah glory is that that sacred space had to be hemmed in by cherubim. And cherubim, while there was 2 statues of cherubim on the mercy seat, it's also conceivable that there were actual cherubim there as well. Now, where this comes into really interesting parallel is when we talk about the book of Daniel and the attempted execution of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, what's so interesting about that furnace, and that's a very, very interesting furnace. That interesting furnace was the sort of furnace that was used to destroy ritual furniture, just like the Ark of the Covenant. Because what would happen is the Babylonians would take these pieces of ritual furniture, burn them in this furnace, and sweep up the gold. But in doing that, that was a way you could destroy holy implements. Burning was considered an act of purification. So they would have taken that Ark of the Covenant, put it in that furnace, burned it to basically gold dust. But this would, in a sense, purify the furnace ritually for the presence of cherubim. This also... So when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego go into that furnace, Nebuchadnezzar appears inside and, hey, wait, who's that fourth guy? I put 3 people in there. Who's the fourth? It's very, very likely that that was the same furnace used to destroy the Ark of the Covenant. Okay.
What if we took the Ark of the Covenant and pushed it someplace else?
Okay. What if we took the Ark of the Covenant and pushed it somewhere else? I don't understand the question.
It was specifically what you're saying is it was put in someplace designed
Yeah,
to handle sacred objects, to treat them with respect. Because remember, you didn't want to anger God.
Yeah.
You didn't want to torque off
Yeah.
your neighbor's God.
Yeah.
Went against your neighbor, yes, but not piss off his God.
Yes. Yeah. They were careful to try not to torque off other nations' gods. Okay, because the Babylonians did accept the validity of other nations' gods. But I don't know what he means by pushed it somewhere else.
Would it have been destroyed? Would it have made it sacred? He's just wondering what would have happened if they had tried to destroy the Ark of the Covenant someplace else.
Oh, okay. If they try to destroy it another way. Okay. What would have happened if they had tried to destroy it in some other way? Okay, that kind of makes more sense here. It would have depended, really. If they had made a big bonfire and destroyed it that way, it probably would have ended up the same way. If they had done sacrilege to it, sacrifice a pig on it, there would have probably been some vengeance of God. Okay. So, basically, the Babylonians took the only method of destruction that would have essentially not ended up in their judgment. Because we have to understand that the reason why the Babylonians were ultimately judged was they took the other holy implements of the temple and used them in an improper manner. They used them essentially for a hedonistic feast. But the destruction of the Ark of the Covenant itself, if it was destroyed by fire, would not have been a sacrilege.
Now, it's into mouthwashes. It's possible that Nebuchadnezzar's statue was made from gold from the Ark.
Find that question here. Mouthwash asks, is it possible that Nebuchadnezzar's statue was made with gold from the Ark? It's possible. Yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah, it's not the gold that was holy. God's.
Yeah. The gold itself was not holy. Gold is a recycled thing. After it had gone through its cleansing by fire, it's no longer tied to the presence of the Ark or God's presence. So at that point, Nebuchadnezzar could have taken the gold and done a variety of things to it with it, and it wouldn't have mattered. Nebuchadnezzar's statue could have been one item. Paying his soldiers another fate of that gold. Various things could have happened to that gold.
And again, if you they paid soldiers and it went out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could have.
Yeah. It's possible that you may be if you have a gold ring, that you might be wearing part of the Ark of the Covenant. It's possible. So.
Isn't most of the Ark's body just completed?
Let me find that there. He goes, isn't most of the Ark's body just gold plates, plated acacia wood? Yes, most of it is. But there's still enough gold there. I think there's about a talent of gold there. I mean, that's still a lot of gold. And the way they did plating, we have to understand the way they did plating was it's thick. It's thick plates. Okay, so we understand this from the way that the Egyptians did this sort of gold over wood furniture. It was very, very thick. I mean, it was a few millimeters. I mean, it's not gold leafing. This is not gold leafing. It's gold cladding. And what do we mean by gold cladding? Is that it's a thicker plate. It's not foil. It's not foil over wood. It's basically thick plate that's sort of molded over wood. So there's a lot more gold there. I mean, it's not solid gold. I mean, even the lid is not solid gold, contrary to Ron Wyatt's goofy translation of Exodus 25. It's not solid. Let me explain. Rumor has it Dr. Falk's wedding ring is made of the ark. This thing does have some heft. By the way, I did make this one myself. I made my own wedding ring. Okay, so could be. Okay, so back to the super chats. We left off at 9:03 here. I'll take that one here. Patui says ancients could hammer gold very thin, maybe not foil thin, but less than a credit card thin. It would be very malleable to a gem. They did, but that wasn't. I will say this: that really wasn't the style that they used in Egypt. Okay.
It depended on something that got a lot of use. And
yeah. It really also depended on, say, the type of item involved. Now, we do have some examples of foil over wood. We do have, like, for example, there's a statue of Serket from the Tomb of King Tut that's very, very thin foil. But we also have a lot of chests that are gold covered from the Tomb of Tutankhamun, and it is actually remarkably thick foil. Okay, as I said, it's more gold cladding than it is gold foil. Okay, so but here's the thing about gold too, is even when it's thick, it's incredibly malleable. It's incredibly malleable. We do find foil cladding again in Egyptian ritual furniture that is up to is a couple millimeters thick, and it's still thick enough and strong enough to be molded. And that's part of the thing about gold cladding, is it allowed the foil to be worked after the fact. So what they would do is they would basically, you'd have your wood box, you'd cover it in plaster, and then you'd put the cladding over that. And that would hold the foil in place. And once you had that foil hold in place, they could then take a tool and put in words and reliefs and all that good stuff. You can't do that in foil. And most of this stuff that we see, for example, the Anubis chest, is done after it's applied. So, yes, they were able to get really thin, but the sort of stuff we find on, say, ritual processional furniture happens to be a lot thicker than that. And that just seems to be um just seems to be what we find with the furniture of the period. He responds, "Yeah, hammered down to credit card thinness, it behaves like something between clay and aluminum foil." Yeah, it can, but here's the thing: they're also using sharp tools to do this. Once you have the I mean, if you're doing it like the covering of the statue of Serket, your form is basically defined by the wood, and then you're just sort of covering it with the foil. But in the case of, say, the Anubis chest, they're using sharp tools to make the letters. And if you've got foil there, now you're risking puncturing the foil. It has to be thick enough to be incised by the tool, but not thin enough that it punctures through. This is why they used cladding instead of just foil. So that just seems to be a part of the craftsmanship of the 18th, 19th dynasties. So, yeah, I mean, it's really tempting to say they got really thin, but it wasn't that thin. And we also have to remember, too, we also have texts that talk about the foil, like the tomb robbery papyri. Like the tomb robbery papyri basically mention them tearing the foil off. Now, that's one of the things that's really, really important, is when they talk about tearing that foil out, it has to have the integrity to be pulled off without ripping. So we do find that say the late say 20th dynasty, where the tomb robbery robberies are taking place, they're taking that foil and they're ripping it off. They're not burning that furniture, because that furniture is in a temple. They're going into a temple, they're vandalizing the furniture, they're ripping off the foils, whether it's bronze or gold, and it's coming off in one piece. This is kind of like stripping wallpaper off of a wall. It has to be thick enough to stay intact, to come off in one piece for them to make good their robbery. They're not setting this furniture on fire inside of a temple. That would be kind of hard to get away with. Yes, yeah. There are logistic difficulties of doing that. Okay, so while they were more than capable of doing, of hammering foil down to that thinness, in practice, it wasn't used a lot on ritual furniture, unless it was a certain type of furniture. Like gaudy shrines, they would probably use really thin foil. But then again, too, they're also doing it over a large area and setting stones to complement it as well. In that case, they probably use a foil. But in a lot of places, and even in gaudy shrines, like on the doors, it's cladding. I did notice that on Tut's gaudy shrine, is that the outer walls are foil, but the doors are cladded. And again, there's a difference here in what sort of designs they're putting on it, and that seems to make a huge, huge difference in how they are doing the decorations. So again, I mean, I could wax elegantly on this all night, because this is what I did my dissertation on. This is what fascinates me, and it's just like I can't help but geek out on this stuff. All right. So anyway, thank you very much for the question, Tui. It was it is an interesting thing, and they did have the facilities to do this sort of thing, but there are reasons why they didn't do it that way. All right. We're back to 903 here. Wow. People are upgrading their memberships. Dang. Jack Ray is going to get a face-to-face with me at some point. Probably this month. Okay, back to Super Chats. Okay, so we answered Mose Salazar's really generous Super Chat here. So that goes into the Ark of the Covenant and all those the glory of the sort of the artisanship here. I want to thank you again for that Super Chat. Really appreciate it. It's so generous, and we're so grateful. Christian Maoist for $5. Thank you for the Super Chat. How come the early kings, prophets, and judges don't have Yahwistic names in early Deuteronomistic material, but many Yahwists have El and Baal names? That's because they're defining this material according to the names. It's very clear that there's I really don't even like the whole classification of Deuteronomistic history because it's almost definitional. You know, if you find a ball name, it's pre, it's early writing. If you find a Yahwist name, it's later writing. It's a terribly artificial way of doing this sort of thing. But we do find that there's a broad scope of, like, for example, Joshua it's a Yahwistic name. Okay, it's a Yahwistic name. So but we also find El names and Baal names as well. So it's going to be that there's a trend in all these names. Early on you're going to find more El names. Okay, you also are not going to find early on as immediate acceptance of Yahweh as the only God that's worshipped in Israel too. So, that's going to make a difference here. But we also know from, say, if we take the biblical narrative to mean anything at all, there are going to be Yahwistic names early on. Probably not as early on as, say, the Exodus, even though there are some that are retroactively changed to Yahwistic names. But there are still going to be some early Yahwistic names. So anyway, thank you very much for the Super Chat. This is one of those areas that's debated. It's debated. The whole Deuteronomistic history thing is something that's debated. You're going to get people who basically support it and other people who don't. And there's no evidence here for it, though. That's the problem. It's using the names here as evidence, and it's really not a great methodology. It's just 100%. Yeah, it's 100% supposition. So anyway, thank you for the Super Chat. Very much appreciated. The camel up for $2. Ruff, ruff. Not enough of the monies. Look below. Well, okay. Thank you very much for the Super Chat. I appreciate it. Is there a question below? Alrighty, the camel leopard. That's 9:30. Okay. Yeah, he's referring here to. I finished my discussion with the Mormon yesterday morning. Would love your thoughts on parts 1 and 2 if you get the time. Been really busy lately. I hope I'll take a look on Discord, but I don't know if I can comment on everything that's going on there. So, for me, Discord, and I would encourage people to join our Discord server. Discord is our social place. I don't really answer a lot of questions on Discord, even though I do given sometimes and do. But for me, Discord is a place where I socialize. So, yeah, if you want some FaceTime with me, you know, I'll sometimes answer questions, but I'm more likely I'm a social person on Discord. For the one-to-ones, you have to do the raw level, I guess, of membership, but but I do talk to people on the Discord server. I'm very active on the Discord server. So, yeah, it's been a flu week, so we haven't been as all active to this week as possible, but yeah, there's all sorts of people on Discord that, you know, we're building a community. This is about building community, and Discord is a great way to build community. The link is in the description. Eddie P for 499. Thank you very much for the super chat. Who is considered a scholar? Well, that's a good question. That's a tough question because it tends to be very subjective in some ways. Now, a scholar is somebody who usually produces a body of scholarly work. That's kind of the broad thing. It usually involves having a terminal degree in a particular field where you are qualified to do scholarly work. Now, can a person without a terminal degree be a scholar? Yes. Yes, they can.
Can a person with a terminal degree not be a scholar? Yes. Yes, they can.
As my producer just pointed out, can someone with a terminal degree not be a scholar? The answer is also yes. Okay. It's one of those things where being a scholar is a matter of what your output is.
Your methodology.
And your methodology too, yeah. Your methodology does count. Is your methodology, say, consistent with producing good work? So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Now, if your methodology is not up to par and your work is not up to par, you can call yourself a scholar, but it's no different than calling yourself an automobile. It has no weight. So, anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it, and I hope that helped. You going to take care of that one? Okay. Yeah, it's in the description. Should. You have the wrench, so it should let you. Yeah, it worked. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the super chats here, I think. I want to thank Historical Strategy Gaming for increasing his YouTube member level. Thank you very much for the membership. Also want to thank see here, Jack Ray for becoming our first Raw level member. And I think Cleverboy, 1000 Cleverboy, also became a horse level member. So we want to thank you very much.
Exciting.
This is very exciting. I mean,
We weren't planning on launching it this week. Yeah, it launched itself.
well, as my producer pointed out, we weren't actually planning on launching this week. We were actually planning on launching it like around a week or two. So it just sort of launched itself, and we are so appreciative that people have, really gravitated to this. So we are thankful for all of you who are getting behind our efforts to fund the channel and move us that much closer to doing this work full time. So we really, really appreciate it. Patui says, in a good comment here, I think John Day cautioned his readers from drawing too many conclusions from theophoric names, and I would agree with that. What's his name now? Richard Hess. Richard Hess did a very good paper at Azor few years ago. If you've ever listened to Richard Hess, he's a great scholar out of Denver Seminary. He did a paper on Yahwistic names, and he discovered names in both the first and second millennium BC. And he basically said there's more than ample evidence for Yahwistic names. Going back to at least the 1300s. And he said basically, he would agree with Day here and basically say don't try to draw the conclusions. And one of the reasons he gave for this was that Yahwistic names can be very abbreviated. Reduced to two consonants, the Y and the H. So, given that they can be so abbreviated, you got to be so careful about Yahwistic names. It's too easy to rule them out as something else. So, again, this would be a good note of caution here. So I would think that Hess would definitely agree with this. Let's see what else we got. All right, we're getting. I don't get this comment. You have a terminal degree and you got it from a non-accredited school. Are you saying if you got a terminal degree and you got it from a non-accredited school?
You don't have a terminal.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say about non-accredited schools. Not all non-accredited schools are degree mills. It was a line of chats of a joking nature. Okay.
But it's still.
But it does raise an interesting point. Not all non-accredited schools will give you a rubbish education. Okay. Yeah, that's a double negative. Okay. Rephrasing that is not all. Some non-accredited schools are good. A lot are bad. Every degree mill is a non-accredited school. But not every non-accredited school is a degree mill. There are some non-accredited schools that actually will give you a quality education. That's sort of the fact. But I've seen a lot of degree mills try to present themselves as non-accredited schools when they were actually degree mills. So it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, you're not going to get the quality assurance standards from a non-accredited school that you're going to get from an accredited school. So, as I say, some non-accredited schools will give you an excellent education. Some won't. And you just got to be a lot more careful if you decide to get your terminal degree from a non-accredited school. A lot more careful. And there will always be sort of the cloud of illegitimacy over it. That's not to say that it is illegitimate, but there will be that cloud. Especially if it's not a school with a good reputation. So, but then again, too, there are people who do this and then go on to do fine academic work. So, again, what are you going to do with it? So, yeah. Sometimes you can make lemons. Some people will be able to make lemonade out of lemons, no matter what education they get. And I think that's a really important thing, is some people will be able to take a bad degree and turn it into fine academic work. But I will say, too, that's the exception, not the rule. The rule is generally, if you've got bad academic training, you're going to end up doing bad academic work.
You're going to do academics.
Yeah, you're going to do your academics the same way. So, again, it's one of those things. Francis Dobbs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Put that up there. That's excellent.
It hasn't come up yet. When it comes up, we will. There it is. Francis Dobbs says, not all lemons turn into lemonade, but all lemonade is made from lemons. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't have said that better than myself. Jack Ray, I have a bachelor's degree in history, and I didn't want to starve, so I became a software developer. Yeah, well.
Did you? Now we're starving.
I mean, my bachelor's degree was in philosophy. And then I did. I mean, I became a computer systems admin, a Unix admin, and a programmer. And I didn't starve for a while, and then I went and got my graduate degrees. And then I starved. Yeah.
And Renzo Flute says that.
Renzo Flutes asks, and actually, since we're done with the super chats here, we're now taking some non-super chats. Okay, and then we're probably going to call it a night, because we still have the flu here. Okay. Renzo Flutes asks, that being said, do you believe James White's scholarly work is good? No. Here's why. He doesn't produce scholarly work. Okay, that's the reason. There's nothing there to judge. I don't believe his scholarly work is good because he doesn't produce scholarly work. He produces popular work. He basically writes popular works. None of his stuff is peer-reviewed. He doesn't do peer-reviewed journals. He doesn't do anything that we would call scholarly contribution to the field. Even his books are published through basically popular press publishers. Okay. So, yeah, I couldn't judge his work as good, but I also couldn't judge it as bad because it doesn't produce scholarly work. It's popular press work. It's popular work. Do I think his popular work is good? Well, I'm not impressed by it, but I haven't read that much of it either. He's not where I would go if I wanted to read anything really deep.
He lies about calling himself a doctor.
Yeah.
And he gets really itchy when you call him on it.
And yeah, and his last 3 degrees, his PhD, his THM, and his MDiv are all from a degree mill. That should be troubling. That should be troubling. His highest bona fide degree was a Master of Arts in Religion from Fuller. Okay. That does not qualify you to be a minister. That does not qualify you to be an academic. That's insufficient. And by his own admission, his PhD dissertation was done as a popular press book, not for the academic community, which was essentially self-disqualifying is basically self-disqualifying for having a PhD.
And then Starkly just added, he's rich enough to use degree mills.
Yeah.
He could have gone.
Yeah. M. Darkblade adds, at least he's rich enough to use degree mills 3 times. Yeah, that's an important thing. You know, he basically was adding those, quote, degrees when he was already a successful ministry. So, he could have afforded real degrees. Yeah, he could have afforded real degrees. He had the time to do it. There was really no reason, other than expediency and ease. Because degrees are hard. And they take a long time. And they're so expensive. Give me a break. So anyway, we're going to take a couple more non-super chats here, and then we're going to call it a night. Take this one here. Bubba Homeschool. Which revisionists with whom you disagree have theories that you wish were true? Ooh, wish were true. Okay, I got one that I wish was true. I wish American young Earth creationism was true. Okay? With his whole American biblical chronology. Because I would have loved the chance to have a living dinosaur in my backyard. I want to ride a T-Rex and a Triceratops. I think that would be so cool. Have a little pet velociraptor, raptor, velociraptor, chained up in the backyard with a little doggy bowl. That would be fantastic. I'd love that. Yeah, so that's of all the revisionists, that's what I wish was true. Okay? It's not true, but I really wish it was. Because it would be so cool. BC, clever girl. Oh, those were Utah raptors, though. I mean, those big ones, those weren't velociraptors. Those were Utah raptors. They're bigger and meaner. No, I mean the small chicken-sized ones. So anyway, that's the one revisionist theory I wished was true. Okay. see here and take another one.
Kenyans, there's
Okay, let me just take that. Yeah, he's our local skeptic. All right, let's take this one here from Grin Rummer. What do you think of this a discovery by archaeologist Ken Leith Ken that there was no conquest in Jericho? I think that's actually a misstatement of what's going on here. Okay. I understand what you're trying to get hit here with the provocative questions, but it sort of misunderstands the archaeology of the area. Kathleen Kenyon basically looked at City 4, which is a Middle Bronze fortification, and she dates it to 1550 BC, and basically looks at the stratification above it, and basically didn't find anything. And people have inferred from that there was no Jericho after that destruction of City 4. There was problems with this, though. Part of the thing is we had a cemetery, Garstang found a cemetery that had a scarab that dated to Amenhotep III. So you had Kenyon saying there's no late bronze town at Jericho, and yet there's a cemetery there that's definitely late bronze. There's an incongruity here. How do you have a city, no city, but a cemetery? Doesn't make a whit of sense at all. So I think people reading into Kathleen Kenyon's findings is deeply problematic. So we also find that there was other indications too, such as late bronze pottery and other indications. Now, how is this explained? Lorenzo Nigro in his 2020 report, 2020 report of Jericho, basically said that he found a late bronze fortification, mud brick fortification. So he's dating this to late bronze 2A. That suggests that there was a town basically following the perimeter of the old Middle Bronze fortifications that is late bronze. And what happened was that the site was leveled. Essentially, a later builder during the Iron Age came on and basically swept the tell clean to level the foundation to build fresh on the site. So unfortunately, there is no destruction of, say, late bronze 2A, and any potential destruction later of late bronze 2B, it would have been swept away. So we can't actually use Kathleen Kenyon's identification of City 4 to infer that there's no conquest of Jericho, because one, it's in the wrong time period. Because if there was a conquest, it would be late bronze, not middle bronze. And two, we have evidence of a city at Jericho during the late Bronze Age. So that's what I think of that. I hope that helped. Thank you very much for the question. Very much appreciated. Okay, we got another super chat here from Jack Ray for $5. Thank you very much. You've been very generous tonight, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so very much. Yeah, it's fun seeing all that stuff. Oh wow. Wow, we have to actually stop here for a moment and actually um thank Slade Neighbors here, who has also generously supported us tonight. It looks like he's given us Wow. Two contributions of over $300 Canadian, so $600 Canadian tonight. Wow. Thank you very much, Slade Neighbors. We really appreciate your support. Wow, that is very, very generous, and we really, really appreciate it. I also want to thank Jack Ray here for his generous support tonight. We really appreciate it. We also thank you for your tremendous support of the membership, the new membership facilities on our YouTube channel here, and being so generous to all the other members here as well. It's just been thrilling to see people, become members. So, wow. Okay, so he asked the question, would an ancient Near Eastern scholar need to know the difference between Ammonites and Amorites in order to be considered good? Yes. Yes, he would. Oh, yes. I know what you're getting at here, and we won't name the guilty here, but I know exactly what you're driving at. Especially if their concentration is the conquest. That was really what was so embarrassing about that, was the particular nameless scholar in mind here was supposed to be an expert on the conquest. This is his wheelhouse. And he was not just an ancient Near Eastern scholar. He was a claimed specialist on the Israelite conquest during the late Bronze, early Iron Age. That's what kind of makes this so embarrassing. So, again, we're not going to name him here. I'm sure somebody in the live chat will name him. We all know who it is.
Jack Ray says he's trying out one of those Addison Weir type questions, and PC said
Take those. I'm trying out one of those Addison Weir type questions. BC says Jack Ray needs more blah.
Melissa Butler correctly identifies him as.
Yes, it was Indiana Jones, definitely. Except he wears a Tilly hat, not a fedora. Is the person you're talking about also supposed to be a doctor? Yes. And I think we're going to draw that here. You could probably figure out the rest on your own. Okay, so we're going to move on to another non-super chat here. And we're going to take one or two more, and then we're going to call it a night, and I'm going to recuperate from this flu. All right, there's a prayer request in here, it sounds like. Let me go find it. All right, we got a prayer request here from the Camelot Part. And the Camelot Part says, prayers for a family friend, please. Her son has been missing since July 12th. Oh, dear. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone keep that all in your prayers. We're a community that we care for each other as well. One of the things I want to point out on the Discord server is, this is not to promote the Discord server, but we actually have a prayer request section on the Discord server where we do pray for each other.
We don't want anyone feeling like if it's a real prayer, it's
yeah, we also want to make sure that people know that there's no prayer that's too insignificant. Okay. We think that prayer is an important part of our community. Okay. So we encourage people to leave their prayer requests on the Discord server where we can all pray for them. Okay. So again, yeah, this is an awesome community. This is a great community. We love the people here, and we want to care for them through our prayers as well. So not just laugh, but also be in prayer with each other. So anyway, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and please everyone pray for their family friend. So we hope this person is found soon and in good health. Okay, we got another super chat here from David Jenkins for $10. Thank you very much for the super chat. And he goes, "Thank you for being such a blessing to me. I've learned so much from you. What is your favorite food from Egypt? Love you both from North Carolina." Well, thank you so very much. Well, we love you too from Vancouver. I'm glad you've learned from the channel. That's really what we want. We were trying to build a community of people who are excited to learn more about the Bible, more about the ancient Near East and Egypt, and we just love it. We just love that we're getting people excited about the Bible again, and it's just it's just really awesome. Okay, what is my favorite food from Egypt? McDonald's. That's pretty close. Actually, I do have. There was actually one restaurant that I used to eat at in Egypt that was phenomenal. It is called the Tutankhamun, and it is on the west bank of Luxor, so West Thebes. You get off the boat, off the ferry, and you hang a left. It's the first street. And you keep walking until you hit the restaurant. Now, they used to have an outdoor dining place right on the river. They can't do that because since the military shut that down. But they still have an indoor restaurant there. But they made a chicken curry, a apple banana chicken curry that was just to die for. Oh my gosh, this was so delicious. It was unbelievable. They also, everything they made was phenomenal. There was the first time I went there, I had just come off the field, and I was dusty and dirty and all that, and I was just so hungry. I just they gave me this massive plate of curry, with rice and and bread and all that, and dessert, and was just, oh my gosh, it was so delicious. Everything they made was delicious. Second time I went back, I was the only person. It was during the height of summer. It was, they didn't get you don't get customers in Egyptian tourist traps during the summer because there's nobody there. So it was like the only person in the restaurant. And I go inside and they go, they said to me, you're gonna have the okra. I said, what? I'm not a huge fan of okra. Okay? Not a huge fan of okra. Okay. And they said, you're going to have the okra. They said, don't worry, you don't have to pay for it. You're going to have the okra. Best okra you've ever had. I said, and I sort of had him. I said, really want the curry? You'll get the curry. Don't worry about the curry. You'll get the curry. But you're going to have the okra. It's like, okay. Well, I'm not paying for it, so sure, I'm an adventurous eater. I'll try the okra. I could not believe how tasty it was. It was phenomenal. It was spiced. It had a hint of tomato in it, like dried, sun-dried tomato. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. I could not believe how good it was. But the as I said, the best thing I've ever eaten in Egypt was that banana apple chicken curry, just unbelievably delicious. And you can only get it at that restaurant. That restaurant is just known for its good food. Generally, I don't like Egyptian cooking. Don't like it. I don't care for it. It's bland, terribly bland. But this one restaurant on the West Bank is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I've had some other things in Egypt that are good too. Camel was delicious. I've eaten camel. It was unexpectedly delicious. My producer doesn't like the fact that I've eaten camel. I don't care for a lot of Egyptian cooking. Cucumbers and tomatoes and everything, it's just not my thing. The meat tends to be not that tasty. It doesn't agree well with my diet. I like McDonald's there. The crepes are good, I'll say that. Egyptian crepes filled with meat, very delicious. Those are very, very delicious. Okay, this is a good question here. 1000 Clever Boy says, "What does camel taste like?" It tastes. It's like kind of like braised beef. Okay, so it's lighter in taste than beef, but it's got kind of that texture of pot roast. So it's like pot roast, but a little milder. So yeah, the texture, as I said, is like pot roast, so it's kind of stringy like pot roast. And it's usually braised. You have to braise it for a long time. So it's very reminiscent of a mild beef. But it's very good. It's when it's well prepared, it's delicious. It's really, really delicious. I've had other things in Egypt too. I've also had pigeon. Don't care for pigeon. I did have this meal once at Giza, which was essentially chicken stuffed with sausage. That was also very good. Yeah. So, you can get good meals in there. But, a lot of Egyptian cooking tends to be very bland. It's often prepared in, like, tangines, which is kind of a ceramic cooking vessel. Yeah, you get this this mix of rice and vermicelli that they often serve too, which is terrible. It's really funny because you do find a lot of bland cooking in Egypt, which is surprising because you do encounter these bizarre souks, potentially outdoor markets where spices are sold. And you'd think that just because they sell a lot of spices in Egypt, that they would spice their food highly, but they don't. It's very, very bland, most of the food.
Tell them what you told me. We start with Egypt. It's terrible.
If you here's one of the things I basically tell people about the cooking in Egypt. It's the further you get away from Egypt and Israel, the better the cooking is. Okay? So If you go east, you hit India, where the cooking is great. You go west, you hit Morocco. The cooking is excellent. Oh, okay. But if you if you sort of go, the closer you get to Israel and Egypt, the blander the food becomes, the less tasty it is in general. So, but there is some, as I said, there are some things there that do taste good. A lot of the desserts in Egypt tend to be based on, say, Lebanese desserts, so they can be okay. All right, so that covers the our cuisine here. Christian Mouse asks, "What other sci-fi are you deeply into other than Dune?" Okay. I love classic Doctor Who. I'm into Star Wars. I'm not hugely into Star Trek. I tend to like Star Wars more than Star Trek, although I don't care for the recent films. I do like some fantasy series. Let's see. For a long time, I really enjoyed X-Files. So I do like a lot of paranormal science fiction as well. So yeah, there are definitely other sci-fi I'm into. I used to read a lot more sci-fi than I've actually watched. So yeah, there's been a few good series that's come on recently. Two that I think are actually worth noting as well. Let's see, what was the just my mind slipping here at the moment here. Uh, Farscape was okay. I'll say that Farscape's okay. What was the other one? There's another series that was pretty good recently as well. Can't remember off the top of my head. I used to like Primeval. Yeah, Primeval was very good. The Man in the High Castle was an excellent series. I'll say that. I haven't seen the latest season of it. I haven't seen. Interestingly enough, I was actually on the campus of UBC, the University of British Columbia, where they filmed a lot of the Man in the High Castle, and I was actually there when they were filming a scene. So I actually saw the set, which was a stop post, and they had the bilingual sign in Japanese and German. They're saying, stop, and so I was actually on the UBC campus when they filmed one of those scenes. So, oh yeah, big Babylon 5 fan. Big Babylon 5 fan. Love Babylon 5. I'm really looking forward to the remake. I hope JMS gets the opportunity to do what he wants to do with that series. But there was another one that was really good recently, and I can't remember the name of it. It will hit me in the middle of the night. The Expanse. That was the other one. The Expanse is real good too. Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy The Expanse. I think that's a terrific series. Okay. Yeah. Um, you have to kind of go north though. So I mean, if you go north from Cairo, okay, you're going to hit Italy. Italy has great food. Then Germany. Germany has great food. Then you hit Britain. Yeah. I will say one thing about Britain though. It's got great curry. It's the only thing worth eating in Britain is curry. And that seems really odd, but actually a lot of the curries that we eat in the West now have their origin in Britain. Um like chicken tikka masala. You're not gonna you can't go to India and find that. You basically that's a British adaptation of an Indian dish. Um yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed eating in Germany. When I did my 3 week photographic tour of Egypt, I hated eating in Egypt. It's just terrible. But I spent the night on the return home in Germany, in Frankfurt. And oh my gosh, I just gorged myself on German food that day because it was just so delicious after spending 3 weeks in Egypt. I mean, I went to this Australian bar in Frankfurt, and I ordered a schnitzel and some bratwurst, and the guy's looking at me. You ordered 2 entrees. I said yes, and I'll pay for them both. And I devoured that. It was just so good. Yeah, German beer was pretty good too, I'll admit. Um, yeah. At the hotel I was staying at, in the morning they had like a basically a buffet, one of the most phenomenal buffets I've ever experienced. There was I mean, I had smoked salmon and eggs and ham and sausages and pastries and you name it. I mean, it was just, oh my gosh, it was like I kind of went. I mean, it was like I died and went to heaven. It was just like, oh, this is so good after 3 weeks of Egyptian food. I mean, Egyptian food is disgusting. It's disgusting. Um, you will often, like for example, for breakfast in Egypt, you'll get this. How do I say this? This cheese that tastes like it's gone off. I mean, it tastes rancid. And then they have they serve you a hot dog, an all beef hot dog that has no flavor. It's just you know it's an all beef hot dog that's not good. Um, and then they'll serve you some bread, basically some flatbread, and it says that's your breakfast. That's breakfast. And if you're really lucky, they will fry you an egg. And it's fried so hard it's like rubber. Ugh. Ick. It's not good. It's not good at all. So, whew. Yeah. Germany, great food. Egypt, not so much. Okay. Let's see here. Did we have another super chat here, or was that the last one? Okay, we have another super chat here from Josh Nichols for 19.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. Could you share something interesting in the Book of Revelation? Old Testament connections, prophecy thoughts, how to approach reading it, etc. Thanks. Um, we have been considering doing a series on Revelation. Now, time has not been on our side here, but we did a Bible study a few years ago going through the entire book of Revelation. And we've been thinking about whether or not we should be publishing this. There's a lot in the book of Revelation. A lot. And a lot that people miss as they're reading it. I will say this. I think one of the things that people miss when they read the book of Revelation is it's not just a book of prophecy. It's a book of wisdom literature. It's apocalyptic wisdom literature. And there's a whole lot of symbolism there that if you decode it, you can get a lot out of that book. An awful lot out of that book. I would say the most important thing to reading the book of Revelation is understanding the Old Testament. If you understand the Old Testament, your Old Testament is your guide to the book of Revelation. And you will encounter so much stuff in the book of Revelation that opens up the meaning of the text. You know, there's references to Balaam and Balak, Jezebel, the Mosaic Covenant. I mean, there's lines taken right out of the book of Exodus. You know, there's references to Genesis, the tree of life. I mean, it's all symbolism and references. It's compressed language. It's incredibly compressed. So you have to, in the case of the book of Revelation, you have to tease it apart. John is expecting you to go to your Old Testament and use it as your code book, to open up, to unveil it, to reveal the revelation. So that is really what you need to, and it's not a hard book. You know, people think too much of it, but like, for example, even something like simple that you think is obvious and simple really starts unfolding once you sort of tease out what it is. Like, for example, in the first 3 chapters, it calls the 7 churches the 7 lampstands. Each church is represented by a lampstand. Well, you think about this, you have to go, what's the lampstand? Well, you have to go back to the tabernacle to talk about the lampstands. The purpose of the lampstands is it's basically a 7-bowl lampstand, each in the shape of an almond bud. The purpose of this lampstand is so that you could extinguish a lamp, one of the lights, and refill it and keep the other 6 going. And the purpose of the lampstand is to give constant light. So each church of Asia Minor is supposed to give light, constant light. Now, that should tell us a lot about what the mission of the church is. The mission of the church is to shed light, constantly shed light. Just that way, one little detail from the tabernacle used a symbolism that's just almost completely overlooked. That'll preach. That will preach. So there's just the book of Revelation is full of these little tiny details that are almost always overlooked. And yet you start teasing them out and you get a text that's not only just tells you about, I mean, to be honest, the futuristic aspect of the book of Revelation is almost secondary to what the book of Revelation is trying to tell you about what life is like now. Yeah.
They don't know their own testament.
Yeah. Yeah, as my producer says here, a lot of people get caught up in the newspaper prophecy, take that because they don't know their Old Testament. Yeah. Yeah. It's very relevant. And a lot of Revelation is to tell you about what's going on right now. What's going on in the church, what's going on in society and culture, and what's the proper Christian response to it. So this is one of the reasons why we're still considering doing this series. We realize it'd be a lot of work to, bring it up to par, but yeah. 10,000 Clever Boy got that right. We have Hal Lindsay, thanks for that. Yeah, and a lot of people have been milking that since, such as Philip Jenkins. So yeah, yeah. So anyway, there's a little tidbit from the book of Revelation, and actually a good way of how to read it as well. So again, we're still highly considering doing this series. And we don't know if or when we'll get it out to press or get it out into the public, but we're still considering doing this because we think it's important enough that it should have a solid treatment. So anyway, thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciated, and I hope that helped. Yeah, sorry, Jerry Jenkins. Yeah. All right, we're going to take, we're at 11:30. I'm going to take one more non-super chat, and it'll be the last super chat of the night. I'll actually take this one, the last one for the night. This is the last non-super chat of the night. It's an interesting question. And it's from Francis Dodds. Have you worked with any Muslim Egyptologists? What did you think of their perspectives? If not worked with them, any thoughts on what you have read of their works? Okay. Yes, I have worked with Muslim Egyptologists. They tend to come in two strains. You have the Muslim Egyptologists that are trained in Egypt, and you have the ones that are trained outside of Egypt. And they do come from different perspectives as far as what their views are. Generally, they are, even though they recognize, say, Moses, as part of, say, Islamic tradition, they're generally very hostile to the Bible or the idea of an Exodus, which is very strange. A lot of them will say, hey, we understand that the Quran, it mentions Moses, but we don't believe in an Exodus. So it's sort of an inconsistent position among the academic ones. Now, at the same time, too, they are also generally, though the academic Egyptologists that are trained outside of Egypt are very good at what they do. So, they do good excavations. The ones that are trained domestically, they see archaeology in a very different perspective. They see archaeology as an extension of tourism. I talked to one Islamic Egyptologist who basically said, I really dislike all these Western Egyptologists. They come in and they're interested in seeds and bones, and they ignore the real work of Egyptology, which is to reconstruct monuments. Wait, reconstruct monuments? That's the purpose of Egyptology? Well, he's trained domestically. They're, Egyptology in Egypt is an extension of the tourism, essentially. So for them, getting monuments reconstructed fast brings money into Egypt. So that's been the focus of Egyptologists that are trained in Egypt. So you do get this really sort of strange, disconnect between the Muslim Egyptologists trained outside of Egypt, who care about preservation, but also care about the science of Egyptology, versus those that are trained domestically that only see this as a foil for tourism. So you do get a difference in point of view depending on how they're trained. But both equally hate any connection of Egypt to the Bible. So, they don't see that there's a value in that as well. Even though it would actually contribute to the spending in tourism. So, but that's because there's still animosity between Islamic Egyptologists and, say, the Israelis. So that's just sort of the political environment there. Okay. And he follows up here. Apparently, there was a lot of interest of Arab conquerors during the Arab conquest about ancient Egypt. So that's what sparked my curiosity about Muslim perspectives. Yeah. Well, they do have perspectives. But, a lot of, say, there is also what they would call, say, Arab archaeologists as well. Say, but they're don't at that point. Once you get to that Arab conquest in 633, they're no longer classified as Egyptologists at that point. They're considered to be medieval archaeologists. So they're trained completely different. And a lot of the medieval archaeologists at that point, they have no frame of reference to Egyptology because it's a complete cultural shift. They're trained how to read Arabic, medieval Arabic, but Arabic nonetheless. The sites are different. They're going to be both focused on what's happening in Cairo, which, has its first, foundations in the 8th century. They're going to be looking more at Islamic graveyards, preservation of those, and basically citadels, and gates and that sort of thing. Okay. Saint Ronan asks, why should they have a hospital towards a Genesis or Exodus? Without it, they can't validate their book. Because they, first of all, they also see Genesis and Exodus as a Israelite corruption of the Quranic revelation. Okay, so they see Quran as true revelation, as opposed to Genesis and Exodus, as they see as a corruption of revelation. Okay. So they don't see it as Genesis and Exodus validating their book. They're seeing their book as the restoration of Genesis or Exodus. Basically similar to how Mormons see the Book of Mormon and the Pearl of Great Price as correcting the corruption of the Old Testament. Okay? So in that respect, the two views are similar. Okay. The other thing is, one of the things about their hostility is that little attempt to invade Israel sort of backfired in the worst way and led to, say, the Israelis in the 1960s basically conquering all the way up to the Suez Canal. So many Egyptians today see the Exodus and the biblical narrative as a pretense for the Israelis, the modern Israelis, to basically conquer Egypt. So there's a lot of mistrust there. Now, the Israelis don't want Egypt. They don't want it. I mean, how do I say this? When I went on a tour with some tourists in Egypt. And one of the things that really surprised, these were tourists, these were educated tourists. These were academics. Many of them had been in tours in Israel. And we're driving through, say, the less desirable areas of Egypt. And they're saying, the slums of Palestine and the occupied territories look a whole lot better than what we're going through right now. They were really surprised at how I don't want to use the word backward, but in Egypt, people don't put their garbage in the dumpster. They basically put it in garbage cans and throw it in the middle of the highway. Yeah. And you can see accumulations of garbage bags down the center of the freeway. There was I was walking through Giza, and there was a dumpster. There's a huge pile of garbage bags beside the dumpster. Not in the dumpster, beside the dumpster. And a shepherd was taking his flock of sheep and having those sheep eat from the garbage piled beside the dumpster. Yeah, ew. Yeah, it's filthy. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad in some areas.
Is that on the government that they don't keep it? Or
No, it's on the people. There was, I saw this guy once. One of these guys who did throw his garbage on the freeway. And one of the things, there's strange things you'll see Egyptians do is sometimes hose the area in front of their place of residence. Okay. And, he said to me, oh, don't worry. Once every 5 years, the rains will come and wash it all away. Woo. And the smell. I'll just say that it's strong. It's very strong. So, yeah, you get your tetanus shots before you go to Egypt. You get your tetanus shots, you get your hepatitis shots, you make sure you're well vaccinated before you go to Egypt. So,
yeah, I would like to find it out. Garbage spoils gate.
well, yeah, that is true. The Oxyrhynchus garbage pile gave us a lot of papyri. Yeah. 2 million of them. So, yeah, it was an important source, but dang. You kind of wish they did still do proper garbage disposal. So, anyway.
Cities in the U.S. and Canada turn.
Oh, yeah, can we tell the difference anymore between Cairo and LA? So, we have our own problems with this. So anyway, that's going to be the last non-super chat of the night. And it is 1:45 midnight, so we're going to call it here. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to thank everyone who became a new member. Thank Jack Ray for sponsoring so many new members. We really, really appreciate it. It gives 10 more, 10 more memberships. Thank you, Jack. Also want to thank Slade Neighbors for his generous support of the channel. We really appreciate it, and his uh, his support has really, really helped us make ends meet. Want to thank everyone for putting up with my coughing and sputtering tonight as we recover from the flu. Also want to thank our Patreon members who have also generously supported this channel through their consistent memberships. Now at 55 likes. I also want to thank our regular subscribers who watch our content, who comment, who like, and also who pass on our URLs of our content to other social media platforms and get new members interested in our content.
Very close.
We are getting really, really close to 10,000 subscribers. It's going to be fantastic. Yes, we're also very close to 1 million views too. So we are extremely close to some milestones here. So anyway, Clever Boy says, click the gift icon quick. We'll keep it open for a couple more minutes after so people can click on the gift icon. But anyway, we want to call it a night. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us tonight. We had some great laughs. And I'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible. Good night, everyone.